It's beginning to sound a lot like podcast. Everywhere you turn. Just take this advice from me and my guest, Janet Varney. You won't want to miss this epic show. All right, that's enough of that. Guys, welcome to the newest episode of Friend or Foe. Once again, just so you know, I threw episode numbers right out the window. It's all about the guest, and this guest on this episode is truly amazing. I have the fantastic Janet Varney, whom I'm sure you know from You're the Worst on FX or Stand Against Evil on IFC, or as the actual voice of Korra on The Legend of Korra. She also makes numerous appearances on Spontaneous Nation with Paul F. Tompkins, which is an amazing show. Check it out if you haven't already. And she is one of the co-producers of SF Sketchfest, which is coming up next month, January, in San Francisco, thus the SF. Guys, Janet Varney is amazing. I don't want to go on too long here because I have gotten many angry emails. Not so many, but a number of people saying that I go on way too long in these intros and people stop listening. So I'm going to get right to it. I do want to plug the Patreon, which is at patreon.com/friendorfoe. Of course, that's FAUX. And guys, we're now on Spotify, which is very exciting. I talk about it a little bit later in the show. So definitely check us out there. And we're across all the podcast places: Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Play, and now across all Amazon Echo devices. Guys, welcome to our Christmas episode, or as close to it as I'm going to get before I take a little break. Gonna do a little candy caning, a little eggnogging, chilling on the couch in my PJs, catching up on Runaways and Walking Dead. So, guys, let's do this. Without further ado, here's another episode, our Christmas episode, ho ho ho, with my very special guest, Janet Varney.
This is the Jabberjaw Podcast Network.
This is Weird Al Yankovic, and you're listening to Friend or Foe.
Okay.
Whatever magic just happened.
Okay, great.
Sounds perfect.
Good. See? He's the master.
He knows.
This is what I'm talking about. He's a wizard.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy crap. Janet Varney is in the studio with me right now. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to Friend or Foe.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Devlin.
And I got to pat myself on the back a little bit because this is totally unbelievably random that you happen to be here because I shamelessly tweeted you.
Oh,
and you
yeah.
actually responded.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Especially when I found, now that I know where you record, I might be here every day. It's incredibly convenient to where I am. So.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, come on out anytime.
Okay, great.
Cody will set you up.
I'll just put
bring you a nice cold
dog
beverage.
bed under the table. I'm not saying I need
sure.
to participate every time, but I could just.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have two dogs.
Cool.
One of them is a mutt. He seems to have like some chow and some husky.
Awesome.
And then the other one is they're both rescues, which I feel like is such a cliche. I don't know how.
It's not at all.
But really, in LA, don't you think 99%
I know how cheesy
of people
it is.
have.
Who rescued you? But seriously.
You have to. Oh, what? I'm not even going that route. I'm not even going. You know what? No, I am. They were rescued. They're alive because of me.
That's
they
right.
didn't rescue me from anything. They're difficult.
Those jerks.
Yeah. But yeah. Then I have a husky who's who I've had a little bit less time. I think I've had her for 4 years, something like that. And then the other one I've had forever since he was like 1. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a Norfolk Terrier.
Okay. What does a Norfolk Terrier look like?
I'll show you
How
later.
many different kinds of terriers are there?
A billion.
Yeah, right?
There's endless amounts of dogs.
Do you think I could just slip in like, oh, she has a Varney Terrier? Like, could we just start saying,
Absolutely.
like, oh, Devlin
No
Terrier?
doubt you
Now,
could.
first of all, Devlin Terrier sounds for sure real, doesn't it? Like, oh, the Scottish Terrier, the Devlin Terrier.
It definitely does, yeah.
Yeah.
Her name is Maggie May. She's
Great.
incredibly neurotic.
How big is
very
a
sweet.
Devlin Terrier?
She's medium. She's medium
Yeah,
sized.
okay.
Yeah, she fits into very small spaces most of the time. Especially when she wants to be very close to me, which is pretty much all the time. She
Cute.
like hides under the computer desk. And
Okay.
things of that.
I know you
nature.
said you're going to show me later, but
Oh, you want to see right now?
Well, you could just describe it. Just give me some. Just give me some basic
she looks
long hair,
like,
short hair.
she looks like walking fried chicken, essentially. That's
Okay.
that's pretty much the description.
Well, Norfolk Terrier.
Exactly.
Sure, fried
See,
chicken.
now you have a visual.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's
Actually,
very
that is
sweet.
Actually, that's when you say that, it does remind me of like that makes me think of like a what's the kind that yaps a lot? A Cocker Spaniel.
A Cocker
When you
Spaniel,
say
yeah.
fried chicken, that does kind of sound like because they have that like crinkly brown fur that now I'm thinking about. It feels like shiny, greasy. Fried chicken, long hair, short hair.
And currently
Is it
long hair. She
curly?
needs no.
Okay.
No, it's straight.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry. I don't know why
she needs a trim in the worst
taken
way.
this over.
She's also blind in one eye, so her favorite thing is, of course, to chase the ball. And we have to be careful in what areas that we do it because she can't really hardly see it. So she's she's totally incredible.
My older dog is 14 and shows zero signs of aging except for just a couple of small things. But lately, it's starting to become clear that perhaps he's losing his hearing in one ear. So there's a similar thing that happens where, like, if he hears a noise, he always assumes it's coming from one direction, which is why we're like, oh, can't hear from this side because if I make a noise on this side, his head quickly turns to the other direction. You're like, oh no.
Poor little guy.
Yeah.
So sweet though.
Very sweet.
Yeah. Maggie was rescued from. She was a breeder dog. She went through a ton of hell before we found her.
So she was like
she's-
a showgirl.
Yeah, she was.
Like a pageant
She
girl.
knows.
Yeah.
She's very aware.
Oh,
that she's
Maggie.
beautiful. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, Maggie.
Which is why we keep her hair long so that she doesn't see it as well. Because again, she's blind in one eye, so no mirrors for her.
Good.
Janet,
Devlin?
I mean, this is so incredible. Seriously.
It is?
I listen to you on Spontanea Nation on a regular basis.
that show.
Actually, I had a super awesome. You ever have those? Do you ride Uber? Do you take Uber?
I mean, I not often here. I'm usually I do. But I guess I have a Lyft account is what I have.
Okay.
Not Uber. But I mean, if we're talking about, this is the question: is your story about Uber the company, or is it just about a ride share service? In which case, like a ride service. In which case,
Actually,
yes,
it's about my driver. I just had a super cool ride on the way here. Talked to a dude who's part of the Moth.
Oh, yeah.
So he was telling me all about his adventures, and we were talking about Paul F. Tompkins.
Yeah.
PFT.
Why not? Any opportunity.
I mean, he's just the coolest.
He's
and
very, very cool.
So he was, my driver was talking about like how he very lightly stalked Paul, saw him at a Trader Joe's and really, really wanted to talk to him. And I've been in those situations, where it's like.
He's so recognizable too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he's a fellow improver, and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So, Paul saw him and recognized him from doing the Moth at another show. And so PFT
so he didn't.
Is the
so that's
coolest.
because then it's so quickly is no longer a light stalking. If somebody else then recognizes
as soon as
you,
the celebrity recognizes you, Have you?
So
ever,
that's what you should do: is just stalk someone long enough that they become familiar with you,
Until
and then they'll be like, "Hey, I always see you," and they'll be like,
stranger is a
"Stalking
friend you
complete."
haven't met yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
That's right. Way to make that the most sweet term into something super. Yeah.
I mean, essentially, that's what I did to you. A little light stalking on Twitter, and here you are. I mean, obviously, it worked.
Yeah, totally.
So, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We got to get into all the amazing things that you do. You're on You're the Worst.
Yes.
You play Becca.
I do.
One of my favorite characters on television
person.
right now.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
She's delightfully despicable. It's really
She's
wonderful.
so awful.
Yeah. I just and you have your gay husband now, which is just
That's
just
right,
fantastic.
My GBF, yeah. Yeah.
It's
yeah,
just
his
really
name's
wonderful.
Ryder in real life, and he's wonderful. He's actually friends with, this is not, obviously he is a working actor who does tons of stuff, but he also happens to be one of Aya's really good friends. And so it's always fun when, somebody comes in and they already have a relationship to someone. So he just fit right in so quickly to that cast, and he's great.
That's
so
awesome.
much making out. I had I mean, it's weird when you are chafed from making out with someone who is gay and not interested in you. And
yeah,
I think I like texted him and said, you know, I'm a flame. Like I have a flaming face right now.
It's rubbing off
you.
right now.
Yeah.
This is really getting to be a problem.
It's all the after effects and unfortunately not as much of the pleasure while it's happening as if you're just making out afresh with someone that you were super
I would
into.
imagine.
Yeah.
Well, that you already answered one of my questions. Is like, have you ever had like one of those super really awkward moments on set with a co-star?
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Well, I wish I could say that was awkward. Unfortunately, it came very easily to both of us. We were both like, "Oh, that was." I guess we have no shame. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say anything particularly new. I don't think anybody feels like anything involving romantic, like. I mean, kissing is one thing, but like, you know, if you're actually in a bed, once you're in a bed with someone, even if it's not sexual, there is, I think, still for me after all these years, a moment of this is so surreal. Like it just takes it.
Right.
It takes the world of TV acting or film acting to a new level when you're like, well, anyway, I'm in bed with you on a work day.
Here we go.
Hello, 15 people in the room with us. It's weird.
Yeah. I've had some pretty strange experiences on set in that capacity. I played a trans woman in a short film called Johnny Be Gone, and there was lots of intimate moments with my co-star, and it got a little weird. You have to trust someone so much to be in those scenes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You also play the voice of Korra.
Yeah.
Legend of Korra.
Lucky me.
Tell me all about that. Like,
it's the best. I mean, it's just an amazing show to have been a part of, and it's still so fun to go out and do Comic-Cons and meet the fans and talk about the show. And, you know, I have a relationship with Dark Horse Comics who put out the sort of comic books now, so I still get to go do stuff with them associated with the show and the artwork and the storytelling. And I mean, it's just a tremendous privilege. It's just such a great show, and yeah, I mean, I still kind of can't believe that happened.
You've done a lot of other voices before, though. How did you first get involved with doing voiceovers?
Well, Devlin, I got to tell you, I hadn't really done many voices before Korra. That was really one of my first. It was certainly the biggest job I ever got, and it was definitely and the sort of longest spanning in terms of like, you know, versus doing commercials or doing like little bits on other TV shows. But even that, I hadn't done that much of. So, yeah, I was very scared. I mean, I really was like, I was so worried that it was somehow going to be more different than I was prepared for in terms of like, oh, you're just in a booth. And I mean, I like I said, I had done some stuff, but there was just so much to the storytelling in Korra that I was very glad to find that it was not that hard at all to act like making sound effects like you're running and falling when you're not doing that is hard for sure. But the kind of emotional side of it was really easy to access, even though I was, you know, in a booth with other actors, like just staring ahead at a script rather than being on stage or on camera, you know.
That's really fantastic. I've always been intrigued with voiceover acting. I've done it a little bit here and there, but not at all on a large scale. It's just, I mean, anything that you can do in your pajamas is really fantastic.
And be things and creatures and people and objects and all that kind of stuff that you wouldn't get a chance to do, you know, in this corporeal body.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I love that you say that. On your podcast, the JV podcast, you have such amazing, surreal, like existential, joyous conversations with people.
Thank you.
I love your show so much because it's such audio warmth, you know?
That's so nice to hear.
And especially when you have people like that I'm not necessarily familiar with, it's always very, you're entirely engaging, and all the people that you have on are also so.
Oh, geez. Thanks, Devlin.
I mean, seriously, it's a really fun show. How long have you been doing?
I've been doing it for 5, 6 plus years, I guess. I've 270-ish episodes, and I haven't taken that many breaks. So. Whatever that math is. But it has been, I think, since I started doing it, not since I started releasing the episodes, because I started recording them, gosh, maybe almost a year before I actually started releasing them. That doesn't seem right, but it is, I think, maybe true. Or at least 6 months. But I think it was longer than that. I don't know. Because I think I was just taking opportunities as quickly as I could to get people on the podcast and recording them. But I really had like, I think I had at least 8 recorded before I even started, because I was still figuring out the logo and all that kind of stuff. And what tends to happen with me, as happens to many other people in the world, whether they're in this business or not, is that you start something and then something else comes that you have to do. And so then it's like 6 months later, what about this project I was working on? Yeah.
There is so much that goes into making a podcast. There's just so much involved. There was a previous iteration of the show. I'm never quite sure exactly how to explain it because it's super weird. But I co-hosted another show, which was part of a podcast network. Yeah. So that also shot like just down the street. With that studio, they took care of everything. Like they got it out to all of the podcast platforms and did the social media and, did all of the
the production.
Yes.
Post-production especially.
That was so nice.
Yeah.
And then I started doing this show and I was like, oh, holy crap. I've got to get it on iTunes.
Yeah.
And I've got to,
I have not done
tweet
that.
15 times a day.
Yeah. I'm very, very glad that I don't have to do that stuff, because agreed. I mean, it's a lot to do just the podcast part of it and, book your guests and, all that kind of stuff. And so the post business, I think, would be maybe more than I could take on. Not to discourage you. I'm very glad you're doing it, but I can relate. I can definitely relate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure Nerdist helps you out.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, if there's they
no doubt.
They make sure everything goes where it's supposed to go, 100%.
Do you think Hardwick has robots? I've been trying to figure this out.
Like just robots that he can mind control
like
and
Superman,
have them go do stuff?
Like Superman has a bunch of Superman robots that guard the Fortress of Solitude and run around for him. Yeah. Because he does so freaking much.
Yeah. Well, I lived with him for 6 years. We were together for 7 years. So I know how hard he works. I've seen his physical exertion of actually being the person who's doing all the stuff. So there were times when I wished that he had robots. I think he has a lot more help now, for sure. But even just seeing his work ethic close up, I know, he just has that. He just has that drive. He just can't, I don't want to say he can't stop working. He absolutely can, but he doesn't want. I mean, he just wants. He has that drive for all of that. It doesn't feel. Sometimes when I commit to stuff, I feel like, oh God, I liked the idea of this, but it's gonna be a lot of work or whatever. I just don't feel like that. His brain doesn't necessarily work the same way. I think he just was like, yeah, this is part of, like, how lucky am I that and he also had, he had a career very early, and then he sort of didn't for a while, not in the way that he does now. And so, he also, I think he's been very vocal about this, but he felt like he wasted a lot of time. And so I think when he figured out what it was that he really wanted to do, and kind of his brand, so to speak, he just really, really dove into it because he didn't want to waste any more time.
Right.
Now, there I've psychoanalyzed my
you
friend.
Psych 101, yeah. Hardwick. I propel myself to be of that mind, because so much of the time, especially just the work for this podcast sometimes, has me pulling my hair out, and I'm like, I got to cut out another 15 minutes of me, maniacally laughing. And
leave it in that 15
Do you find yourself
minutes.
doing all those little things like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I first started, I was so much pickier about what I was saying and, awkward pauses and feeling like I repeated myself. but there was something that came from, I mean, honestly, not unlike improv or anything else that you sort of second guess a lot when it's new. And then I guess if you take it easy enough on yourself, after a while, you just go, but you know, and then some people aren't like that. Like Dana Gould has had a podcast forever, and it's different for him. And his relationship to it is different, and he wants to edit it. And, you know, he's very careful about, you know, the way he structures it and the way he sort of divides up the pieces of the conversation and whatnot. And I really admire that. I think kind of what we're talking about, it's like know your limits and sort of know what you're going to do and do well versus when you're going to be overextended. And so somewhere along the line, I think I was just like, well, look, if I'm going to put this out every week, I have to stop, you know, treating everything with kid gloves, and I have to stop being anxious about all the qualities about my voice that make me crazy or whatever that is. We did it already. It's baked into the
it's
recipe.
Done. It's in there. Yeah. You just got to let it flow sometimes.
Yeah.
My partner tells me all the time that she's like, it wasn't nearly as bad as you thought. Like it's totally okay.
Yeah.
Like this is the best one you've done. And I'm like, oh God, this
Don't
is
tell me that right now.
No, it's just should have edited that out, and I'm so breathy here, and oh my God.
Yeah. I think, well, and then also like if you get to a point where you just kind of stop listening to them, like I never even listened unless there's unless there's I know that there was a problem or there was something really specific that I said just that was, you know, patently wrong or whatever. But in general, I just shoot them off once I'm finished with them, and that way I don't.
It probably relieves a lot of pressure that way, for sure.
It does.
Going back to Dana Gould, who you work with on Stand Against Evil on IFC. Let's talk all about that. I will admit to you, I am so very sorry.
That's okay.
I have not seen the show.
Listen,
I was gonna marathon it
there.
before. There's so much TV.
There's so
Janet.
much TV.
Oh, it's mind exploding how much good TV
They're
out
really,
there.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing time in television.
It really is.
Yeah.
All over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, just and every platform of every nature is coming out with their own original programming. It's absolutely fantastic. But let's talk about Stand Against Evil.
Sure.
How did you get involved with the show, and tell me about your character?
Sure.
All the things.
Sure. So it's a show on IFC. If you don't have IFC, you can just watch it on IFC.com, since that is the sort of world that we're living in now. And the first season is on Hulu. And I'm sure you can get it on iTunes. I feel like I've looked at that for my dad because he's actually quite tech savvy considering his generation, but he doesn't necessarily there's like he doesn't have like Hulu, or I mean I think he has Netflix, but
sure.
But anyway, so I was trying to tell him where he could see it, and I think I saw that they had it on iTunes, and he was like, yeah, but I want like a DVD box set, you know? You're my daughter. I don't want to just have it on the cloud somewhere. I was like,
sure.
Yeah, there's no DVDs. But Dana created it. He's very long been a huge, you know, sort of monster movie fan, and he loves like, you know, 70s, 80s era horror, and he's actually worked with Bruce Campbell, and I think he wrote on like some iteration of an Evil Dead show in the past. Our show is compared to that one the most frequently, but it's still really different. Our show is really goofy. It also has a lot of sentiment to it, but Dana was a writer on The Simpsons for many, many years, and,
right.
and so much of that show is infused with his humor, and that's what you see on our show as well. So there's just a lot of like, it's just like joke. He's, as he likes to put it, it's a comedy trapped in a horror movie, and I think that's not what, like something like Ash vs. Evil Dead is more like horror with comedy to it. Ours is very comedic, but it's really fun. It's just a super fun show to do. We use a lot of practical effects, so we're actually getting to interact with things in the moment. We're not, you know, on a green screen with a ping pong ball or a tennis ball. And I get to do it with John C. McGinley and Deborah Baker Jr., who was a UCB alum, and Nate Mooney, who's just a wonderful actor that was on It's Always Sunny, but he just kind of pops up everywhere you go. Oh, that guy. And then we'd have some just amazing guest stars, and it's just really fun. We shoot in Atlanta. we sort of knock it out very quickly, which I actually like because I think because of my improv kind of background and affections, it's nice to just jam through something and not belabor stuff for too very long. And yeah, it's really fun. Dana Gessie wrote the part for me.
That's awesome.
But most of the time when something like that happens, it doesn't work out. They are like, no, we want this other person. Like,
oh, yeah.
You know, so that the fact that all the stars aligned and you know, the thing actually got onto the air and I got to be in it seems like a complete miracle.
Have you ever done one of those projects that you were so proud of that never like made it to air or never got released?
I feel like I've done so many of those. I just done so many.
Me too.
You know? Like that, I remember when Burning Love got picked up. I thought it was a joke.
Burning Love. We have to talk all about Burning Love. I just got introduced to it like earlier this year.
Oh, right on.
And my partner and I have watched all of it like twice through.
Oh,
it's just hilarious. And you are.
Oh boy!
I know I'm just fluffing you here.
No,
but seriously,
I
you
brought
are
it
the
up.
best part.
Well, I brought it up, and I didn't bring it up in that way. But it's honestly true that when we shot the sort of like, you know, we just saw it like sort of a sizzle for it. It was just another thing that, you know, you do so many things like that because if you're around long enough that you have the good fortune of, you know, creating relationships with peers of yours, most of whom go on to do bigger and better things than you do. So you're lucky if you get to hold on to their coattails. But just having been in the community, you know, there's just so many little pieces of things here and there that you shoot. And the idea, of course, is like this will, you know, we'll be able to do more of this or what have you. And I remember when we shot the sizzle for Burning Love, I was like, oh, this is so fun. This is so great.
Yeah.
This is never going to go anywhere. Just not because, you know, because this, and sometimes the better something is, the you sort of feel like, well, that's how it works. Like the more original and funny and strange something is, the less likely it is to have any legs. So, so when we found out that that was actually going to become anything, I was like, seriously? No. Come on.
Really?
We get to do no. It was shocking, and it was very good news.
It's phenomenal.
Ken Marino and Erica Oyama are just they really knew what they were doing, and I think there's a lot of ways to do parodies like that aren't, you know, as successful, or they just don't click the right way. But their vision was so specific, and then the people that they got to do it, it was a real combination of like their brilliance and then, you know, kind of letting people play to their strengths and improvise and all that kind of stuff. And I think, you know, they just really put something special together.
It is very special. Everybody on it is absolutely great. And all of the random guest stars are just like Jennifer Aniston showing up.
Yeah.
Sorry, listener, spoilers, but I give you too many spoilers on the show. I'm so sorry. I was just talking. I actually got to do my previous show at Funny or Die, the Funny or Die offices.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with Patrick Bramall, who's currently on No Activity. And we kept saying, oh, no spoilers. And we kept like spoiling everything. But
I'm really bad at that too.
If
I'm enthusiastic about something, I want to talk about it now.
Yeah, because we're nerds.
Yeah.
That's the, you want to just talk endlessly about everything.
Absolutely.
It's so entertaining.
Absolutely.
You also worked on Mutton Stuff.
Mutton Stuff. Yeah, I love Mutton Stuff. I don't know if it's around anymore. I guess maybe it's not.
I believe it's now ended. My partner actually helped cast it after you were on the show.
Yeah.
She came on board. So
that was really fun. That was a bunch of, you know, the people that some of the people that worked on the show I had known from the Henson Company, which is, you know, obviously Jim Henson and his son Brian and this extraordinary group of like very funny, hugely talented puppeteers. And so when someone said, like a friend of mine who wrote on the show said, you know, I'm writing on the show now. I want you to come do something on it. Don't be afraid, but it is children, trained dogs, and puppets. And you sort of hear that, you go like, oh my God, that sounds like the biggest cluster F of, you know, how am I not going to just be sitting around doing, you know, and it was one of the most well executed, tightly run, but still super casual and friendly and inviting. Like it was a super fun show, and they really had everything just buttoned up. Like puppets all did what they were supposed to. I'm saying that like they're a species. The puppeteers are amazing. All of that was, and then the trained dogs that were on that show is unbelievable. It's
nuts, right? I got to go to set and see everything happening a couple times.
Did you meet Jumpy?
I met Jumpy. I met everybody. I got to go back to
intimidating how smart those dogs are.
Did you get to go back to the dog costume shop that they got? Oh my God.
It's so crazy.
So great.
Yeah. Oh, so fun.
Yeah. Anything that you can do with the Jim Henson Company is you have to say yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've been trying to get Fozzie on this show because Fozzie was on At Midnight.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I can get Fozzie. I haven't been able to.
I hope you get him. I don't know if I know the actor who plays Fozzie now. I don't know as many of the Muppets that are over with ABC and Disney that started at Henson as I do like Henson Puppeteers. But like, there's a lot of crossover. I know Gonzo, but he lives in the Bay Area.
Okay. All right.
Goals.
I mean, I'd love to have the great Gonzo on the show.
Oh, he's so great.
Shout out.
Yeah. Major shout out.
Okay. So now I'd like to move on to the game segment.
Oh, wonderful.
Segments.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. I don't know what I'm looking at, but I'm already very excited.
So this is a truly demented children's book called Tiny Tim. And I'm trying to find a great excerpt for
That's not your fault, because that's just a weird word. Who puts a P at the end right before the T?
I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this an old book?
This
it looks
This
ancient.
is an old book, yes.
Okay. This
and
great.
It's wild. If you would please.
Okay. First of all, this is great. I couldn't tell if I needed to. I see, but listen, I'm staring at a picture with a tiny old lady who's sitting in a giant rocking chair. I mean, I don't want to give you images of like Lily Tomlin because I think rocking chair is a little bit smaller than that character that Lily Tomlin would do.
But it's definitely that.
It's definitely that. She's wearing, listen, I'm sure that this is just a hat, but it does look like her head is wrapped in gauze. So it looks like she's had some sort of serious head injury. So I want you to picture that. The cup and saucer, definitely too big for her. The little girl who's sitting on the footstool next to her, who's handing her a tart. You can't see her face. There's something creepy about that. And then there's a dog that is scratching itself because one assumes that it's flea-ridden. And then there's a fat cat that looks very austere. It kind of looks like Alfred Hitchcock. This striped orange and white cat is sitting behind the old lady on the chair, so it sort of looks like she's crushing it to death. There's a teapot and a tea cozy, and then a table on the table, and then there's some sunflowers that look suspiciously like they came out of Van Gogh, and then there's this plate of tarts. So and she has hot pink slippers on. Grandma has hot pink slippers. So anyway, I was looking at it trying to figure out if I should do like a bad British accent because I wasn't sure.
You do whatever
British
you like,
was.
Janet. You're the professional here.
Okay.
Grandma Gurney gives to me gooseberry tart and hot sweet tea. She sits up high on her rocking chair, but she can't touch the floor and she doesn't care. Grandma Gurney is tiny and grey. I wonder if she'll shrink away. Grandma Gurney has grown very small. One day she won't be there at all.
Oh my.
How evil. Well, now I do think it's gauze.
Oh my God, that was absolutely fantastic.
Listen,
thank you so much.
Osteoporosis is not a laughing
it's
matter.
It's no joke. It is no joke. Every line of this book is an absolute gem.
I really like what I saw. I really tried as hard as I could to explain the picture.
I'm going to have to start putting pictures of this book on the Instagram because they're just seriously
huge
priceless.
Plus. Yeah. Well, thank your girlfriend for me for exposing me to Tiny Tim.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So next, I'd like to do a little thing called doctor's orders.
Okay.
So
sounds
essentially...
dubious.
It is. Essentially, you've got a mad scientist that's offering to give you whatever addition to your body that you would like.
Oh.
It can be anything of your choosing. What would you choose and why?
Okay, so the mad scientist is I'm supplementing my existing
That's
body.
right.
I'm not changing something. I'm adding to.
Yes, it can be a physical attribute or a mental attribute. You can matrix something into yourself.
I gotta go with like magical healing. I really do.
Wolverine style.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it doesn't even have to be like that it prolongs my life or that I'm invincible, but just to be able to just not have back problems.
Oh no.
I'll just limit it to like, oh, my neck hurts. I'm stressed out. That's where I hold my tension. To be able to just not have to. I mean, that's just a lazy person who doesn't want to like stretch.
Are you?
I like to live in a stress-free world where it just happens on its own.
Me too. Massage is one of my favorite things. Are you familiar with Soothe? Have you heard of this? There's an app called Soothe where essentially you hire a masseuse and you just pull it up like, anything else. You Uber a masseuse and they bring the bed to your house and set it up, and it's actually pretty cheap. They're not a sponsor on the show, I would like to say, but I would love for them to be.
They could be.
Maybe after this episode, that will happen.
Oh, maybe I should do that. That's another thing is I'm bad at, I used to be so good at getting massages regularly, and now I'm like, I don't have time to take care of myself. Oh, it's so stupid.
Who does?
What a jerk. Doctor's orders.
I'm telling you what, as Baz Luhrmann says, do something every day that scares you. And the thing that scares me a lot is not being prepared, not having notes. And I'm like, you know what? Janet is a master improver. I'm not going to need notes with her. I'm just going to talk about whatever. And then it terrified me so much that I was like, no, I absolutely can't do that, because if I don't write down notes, I will lose my freaking mind. There are just those moments where I'm clicking.
Yeah.
Trying to get the engine running, and it just won't start. There's
I
no
think
more
that,
order.
I definitely recommend classes. I mean, I always recommend them to anybody, even if they're not necessarily planning on doing anything with improv, just because they are really great about, kind of speaking extemporaneously and also just sort of loosening up in your life and being more forgiving of whatever your behavior is, and helping with nervousness and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I didn't. I was doing so much sketch, and I was already like working on television and stuff when I took classes through the UCB, and so it's not like, I guess what I'm saying is there's no right or wrong time to take classes. Like you can take a class if you're a huge movie star. You can take a class if you are a college student or a high school student. I don't think it matters in that way. It's always going to, speaking of supplementing, it's always going to supplement whatever, like wherever you are in your work and stuff. So I definitely recommend it. And the UCB, I mean, that was the school that I went to. I went to Bay Area Theater Sports when I lived in San Francisco a bit, and then came down here. And it is, their style of training is something that, like you were saying about clicking, but like it sort of clicked for me, the idea of like sort of where they put their emphasis on doing scene work and stuff. It made sense to me. It was like, oh, this feels like a fit, because there are different schools of thought where improv's concerned. A lot of, I mean, it's not to say anything is so wildly different that it's like, whoa, you just blew my mind. But certain schools of thought emphasize different elements of, character versus plot versus that kind of stuff, and yeah, I really like where the UCB guys come from.
What's your favorite part of the improv world, like game or exercise or type of improv to do?
Well, I think short form is very intimidating to me. That's when you really are like Whose Line Is It Anyway type games. I've done stuff like that. I did it with some of the best in what I consider to be the world, which is the sort of like the Ryan Stiles and Greg Proops and
you are
people
the best
like
in the
that.
world, Janet. Give yourself a hand.
Beyond false. Beyond false. And that's very intimidating. The sort of like, just think of a quick joke,
Yeah.
I do love, long scenes. And so, yeah. And then, but then in general, I think just, the energy of a group that has great chemistry to be a part of something like that it feels to me like I imagine people who love stand-up and love doing stand-up and just feel they must do stand-up. Like I don't have that in me at all. So for me, that sort of moment is kind of what I imagine that feeling to be, that sort of propels you forward because it's so, exciting.
I've done it. It's terrifying.
I bet.
My listeners are getting very tired of this story, but the first time I ever did improv, I ended up opening for Jeff Ross because he was trying out his jokes for the Justin Bieber roast. And I was so terrible, and he came up and he's like, "Let's give this guy another round of applause." He was really bad.
Great.
Good old Jeff.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's. I probably wouldn't put myself in front of someone like him.
Yeah,
I
I had no idea he was there. Like he came out of nowhere.
Gotcha.
He was just in the crowd getting ready to go.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah. I'm not a roaster.
No. My games producer, Libby Ward, a fantastic writer. She comes up with all the crazy ideas
I can't believe
that I
you
do.
have a games producer. I'm so impressed.
Me too.
Wow.
But she mentioned that. What did she say? Her mom went to Rincon. High
She
School.
did?
Yeah.
Is Libby from Tucson?
No.
Her mom is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I wonder if her mom had my dad as a teacher. It sort of depends on how old everybody is in the whole scheme of things. But my dad started teaching when he was like 20, so he taught till he was 50. So he
What did
really
he teach?
had a lot of. He taught English.
Oh, okay.
He taught AP English, and then he taught Contemporary Lit, which is like the class for kids who are flunking English. He sort of like the best. He taught the best, and then the most needing of improvement. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a great teacher. He was my high school English teacher.
I love those kind of teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a really tough time in school. School was not my thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that I was the class clown at all, but I definitely needed a lot of attention.
Was it a big public school?
It was a public school. It wasn't big at all. It was what I like to call way out in the country. I'm from a tiny town called Centralia, Illinois, nowhere near Chicago. But I went to grade school like, a few miles outside of town. And it just, I don't know, man. I was all over the place all the time. Such a broadly imaginative kid, and I always wanted to be just outside exploring trees, leaves, woodland creatures, like anything that I could expand my horizons with. And then I was trapped inside this room with all these people I didn't like, and this desk that I was always fidgeting in. It always drove me crazy.
I get it.
Have you ever had a moment of pleasant shock in your career?
Yeah, all the time.
All the
time. It's rare that I'm not surprised by something going well. Which that makes me sound like I'm such a, like a pessimist, but you just get so used to things not going the way you think they're going to. Not going, or just you get used to things being disappointing. And that's not to say there aren't pleasant things that happen all the time, but that's part of, I think, our challenge as human beings is the stuff that sticks with you tends to be the negative stuff, and you really have to make an effort to check in with all the positive stuff, because that's a choice. It's like a choice to focus on the negative, and it doesn't feel like it is. But yeah, I've had lots and lots of pleasant shocks. Certainly getting Cora was a huge one, but
undoubtedly.
But yeah, there's just like an endless series of them. I still am like so tickled when if I get a role or I get asked to do something instead of having to audition, anything like that, I'm always just like, what?
If there were no boundaries to you playing any role you wanted across the spheres of time and space and pop culture, what or who would you want to play?
Boy, that is rough. I did grow up watching with my dad the PBS version of Sherlock Holmes that was with Jeremy Brett. And so, and I definitely wanted to play Sherlock Holmes. Like there was no question that I wanted to play Sherlock Holmes. And now with the reboots with Benedict and all that kind of stuff, that still feels like it would just be really, really fun.
Have you been on that show?
No.
Would you love to be on that show?
Yes,
should we start a campaign?
Yes, let's get that campaign going
When I release
away.
this episode, it's hashtag Janet on Sherlock.
Get out there.
Let's make it happen.
And I'll fly myself to England. I really would, goodness. But yeah, so that's sort of that's the kind of the one that first springs to mind, I think. I don't know why, but yeah, that was one that I really was like. I think it made me really love acting too, just because he was such a great actor, and I really love the clothes that he wore. Like clearly that had left a huge imprint on me because I was so little that now I feel like if I were just like a rail thin, tall British man with a large nose. And slicked back black hair and like
You're turning me on, Janet.
Nappy,
honestly, yeah.
Yeah, natty, not nappy, a natty, like 3-piece suit with tails.
Oh yeah, you got to have the tails.
Yeah, the hat and the pipe. That's not the Sherlock Holmes that Jeremy Brett played. He played much more to what Benedict Cumberbatch is like, actually.
And that's for all of those reasons, I'm a fan of Doctor Who.
Sure.
That's my jam.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm very, very behind. I stopped watching after Matt Smith's first year. Just kind of fell away and haven't been watching. But
it got really good and then very terrible and then very good again. And now, of course, there's a female doctor, which is
that's very cool.
Super exciting.
Yeah, I got to get back into it. Yeah, there was a point at which, for some reason, after that season, it just started to feel. I've said this before, but for some reason, it started to feel like I was at Universal Studios on Doctor Who: The Ride. Like the music bed was so loud. And everything was so fast-paced and frenzied that it started to feel like it was an amusement park ride instead of a TV show. I was like, I can't drop into this anymore. But I've heard that it got really great.
Yeah.
So I'll have to go back.
I'm admittedly not current on my episodes after just going into that, but that's what Christmas break is for.
Forever. That's right. It's been around forever. So you're allowed to still say that Doctor Who would be a show you'd want to be a part of or a character.
Absolutely. What did you do in your career before you really became, quote, famous that was just absolutely terrible? Like what was one of those horrible jobs that you had?
Well, I've been really lucky. Everything I've done in LA, I'm hard pressed to think of anything that I would be categorized as terrible. Like, oh, please don't ever watch that. I definitely did a pilot in San Francisco that just some like cool guys who, they were sort of bros, so it wasn't like they were tech geeks or anything. They were like stockbroker, East Coast, like Boston dudes who were like, let's make a show, let's make a show. And so it was like a movie review show, and I will say that I think it might have been really, really bad. I think I showed part of it. I think I did, was it Rob Hubel's show? I think Rob Hubel has a show where I think it's called The Shit Show or something like that. I don't know. There's something. No, maybe
that sounds right.
But where you actually have to put up on the screen something terrible that you've done, and it was pretty bad. But I will say, this doesn't count as a particularly bad thing, but I will say there was a show that Andy Secunda created, who's a big UCB guy, and Busy Phillips was the star. It was the first time I met Biz, called Love Inc. Love Inc., right? Love Inc. It was like a date. She ran a dating thing, and my friend Sean Conroy wrote on it. So there was a lot of UCB New Yorkers, but it was definitely a show where it was one of the first guest stars I booked, and my character, it was a real lesson in like, oh, this is how much television changes in 1 week's time after everyone gives notes on stuff. So my character started as one thing and at the end ended as like a 9 months pregnant woman whose gambling tell was that her baby would kick visibly from her stomach. It was so complicated.
Whoa.
And it was just being swept up in it, where every morning of the week of shooting I would get a script and be like, what? That was definitely like, that popped into my head too, as far as like, oh boy, that was bananas.
Yeah. Oh, that's that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, I think we've all done some things that we're a little hesitant to bring up in conversation. I did a bunch of horror comedies with this troupe in St. Louis, with such amazing titles as Dead Shit and Colonel Kill Motherfuckers.
Great.
There was one called Cockhammer.
Subtle.
Not a porn.
Very subtle. Yeah. Very subtle.
But all of that stuff builds the ladder to success, of course.
There you go.
And
absolutely.
makes lots of amazing memories.
Absolutely.
Like getting a glob of fake cum thrown on me at one point.
Sure. Listen, you've been there. You and Jodie Foster, man.
That's right.
Side by side.
Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
Oh man, are we winding down, Cody? Oh man, I could just go on and on forever. I really so very much appreciate you joining me here on the show, Janet.
Of course.
You have a ton of things to plug. Tell me about all the things that you have. Oh boy.
Well, I would say the main thing is just the thing that is consuming my life right now, but in a way that I'm very familiar with and I'm fine with, is SF Sketchfest, which is a comedy festival I founded 17 years ago.
Holy crap.
Yeah, with a couple of buddies of mine that I was in a sketch troupe with, and we've stayed together as producing partners, and it's coming up January 11th through 29th, and we have like 200 shows and tons and tons of great shows to see. Like, you know, there's TV reunions and panels and improv and music and stand-up and sketch and just film screenings, and there's just tons of stuff. And so sfsketchfest.com is the website on that. But that's like what I was doing right before I came here, and it is
cool.
what I will immediately do. Like the second as I'm walking down the hallway, I'll be checking my phone. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the JV Club podcast, I guess, which is free anywhere you get your podcasts.
That's JV Club.
JV Club. Yeah, those are kind of the two things that are going on right now the most.
And, of course, Stand Against Evil.
Yeah, you can
watch
check out
on ifc.com.
Those, totally, 100%, yeah.
And You're the Worst, which is, are the new episodes on Hulu yet?
I have no idea.
I
don't know where
you
they
gotta
go.
get FX.
Oh, maybe FX Now or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the whole thing. Everything
Guys,
is the whole thing.
You're the Worst is a brilliant fucking show.
If
you are not watching You're the Worst, what the hell are you doing with your life?
Watching
Seriously.
one of a million other great shows.
You have to watch. I mean, it is psychotically enjoyable. Seriously. Of course, you can follow me across all the things at Devlin Wilder, and this show at Friend or Faux Pod. That's FAUX. And guys, announcement as of right before I came to the studio, we are now on Spotify. So if we weren't already in all of your ear holes everywhere else where all the other podcasts live, we're now on Spotify, also on the Laughable Comedy app, and just all the places.
And now we know that you are the one that has to do all of that. So
I sure do.
Kudos to you. We salute you.
Right.
Yeah. Bless your heart.
Well, bless you, Janet Varney. Thank you.
Bless us all. Hey, Tiny Tim, God bless us, everyone.
Bless us, everyone. And Cody, thank you so much for engineering us.
Thanks, Cody.
Indeed. All right. That's it. See you on the next one.
There's nothing else. That's it. What are you doing? Walk away.
Just walk away. Turn your phone off now. Thanks, guys. See you on the next one.
Guys, this has been Friend or Foe. No one knows.
Visit jabberjawmedia.com for more shows like this one.